In this video, I'll be going over quiz 4, the questions. So please make sure that as you're watching the video, that you are taking notes on not just if you get a question right or wrong, but what mistakes are you making so that we know what we need to fix. Because remember now, guys, next week you do have your second mock. Mock 2 is now going to be next Thursday. So keep in mind that with your mock, your test now coming up, what mistakes are you making so that you know that you need to fix them and what I can do to support you moving forward. So again, make sure that whatever version you have, the questions are going in order of version A, but keep note of your version and what question number we're on. So if you ever need to pause the video to find your question number, go ahead and do so. So here with question number 1, remember, right, we need to divide by 4 our exponent. Now, when you divide by 4, you actually get a whole number. You get 51. So remember, guys, 51 is like saying it's 51 but 0.00, which means how many quarters do we have? Well, we have 0 quarters. So this is the same as -4 but times I now, not to the 204 power, but I to the 0 power. Then -4 times, well, what is I to the 0 power? 1. -4 times 1 is -4. So that's why here the answer is B. So now go ahead and find question number 2. With question number 2, notice how there is no X, right? No X. So treat it like a two-step with the square root method, right? So add or subtract first. So here I'm going to add the 128 on both sides. Now I've got 8x squared is equal to 128. Notice how you're still multiplying x by 8, so then you have to divide by 8. X squared is now equal to, I believe that is 16. Then now I need to take the square root of 16. And the square root of 16 is positive -4. No need for I because it's just the square root of 16. So that's why here you get the answer of B. Question number 3. Go ahead and look for this one on your version. Notice how in question number 3, we are distributing and subtracting. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute, but notice how this is 5i. So 5i times 8 is 40i. Then here, 5i times 2i is now 10i squared. Then notice how you are subtracting. So we also need to distribute a -1 value. So positive 12 is now -12. Positive I is now -I. Now, before we continue, notice how you do have I squared here. And remember, I squared is always -1. So I have 40I, but now no longer positive 10, but now -10 from that I squared there. Then -12 minus I. Now we can combine our like terms. -10 minus 12, -22. Then here you have 40i, but minus another I, you now have 39i. So that's why here the answer was A. Question number 4. Notice how this is the same as when we're solving this. This is 6 minus 8i times itself, 6 minus 8i. So now I'm going to set up the box. And here I've got 6 minus 8i times 6 minus 8i. And now we'll go through our area model. So 6 times 6 is 36, negative 48i here. Then in the bottom row, negative 48i. But negative times a negative is a positive 64. Then I times I is now I squared. Then remember, right, anytime that you have I squared is -1. So that's why this is in positive 64, but now negative 64. So I'm going to cross that out here. Then negative 48 minus 48, negative 96i. So now let's combine those like terms here as well. 36 minus 64. That now gives you -28. Then don't forget your I, so minus 96I, which is why here the answer was B. Question number 5, dividing. But notice the denominator is not in standard form. So I'm going to rewrite this as 4 over, that is negative 5 plus 2I. So I just rewrote it, so I'm going to cross it out. Now, remember, when we don't want to have I in our denominator, we multiply by its conjugate, which is negative 5, but now minus 2I. So now negative 5 minus 2I. Whatever we do to the bottom, we also do to the top. Now we can solve. I'm going to multiply, distribute that 4 here. 4 times negative 5, negative 20. Then 4 times negative 2I, negative 8I. Over, notice how in the denominator, all of the answer choices all have 29. Now, I'll still go through this, though, and solve so you guys can see, but use test-taking strategies. So this is negative 5 times negative 5, which is positive 25. Then here, 2I times negative 2I, negative 4I squared. But remember, right, I squared is always negative 1. So that's why this is 25, negative times a negative, positive 4, and there's your 29. Now, notice how both are negative, so that's why here the answer is D. Because if I were to separate this, that is negative 20 over 29, and that 8 is also negative, so minus 8 over 29I as well. Question number 6. So this is what we did starting off with our polynomials. But notice we're subtracting first here. So I'm going to distribute our negative 1 to every term. So I'm going to bring down 5x cubed minus 14. Then I'm going to go ahead and also rewrite this in standard form. So I need my x cubed first. So not negative 2x cubed, but positive 2x cubed. Now not positive 3x squared, but negative 3x squared. No longer positive 8, but negative 8. Then notice how we're just adding. So I'm just going to bring that down. 9x squared minus 4. Now combine your like terms. I have 5x cubed plus 2x cubed is now 7x cubed. So I'm done with those terms, and I notice I need 7x cubed. So I'm going to mark off A and B here. Then continue with the squared. You have negative 3x squared plus 9x squared. So negative 3 plus 9 is positive 6x squared. Then I'm going to cross those out and continue on. But there is no x terms. We'll just combine our like terms here, the constants. Negative 14 minus 8 minus 4. That gives you negative 26. So that's why here the answer was C. Question number 7. Notice how we are solving for x, right? So we're solving. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple steps at one time. I notice I need to distribute my x here. So x times x is x squared, and 8 times x is 8x. Then, if you recall, right, is equal to 48. It has to equal 0 when we're solving. So that's why we need to subtract 48 from both sides. I've got x squared plus 8x, but now minus 48. There were no like terms. Now we need to factor. See how here x squared's by itself, so we can go right to that table where numbers multiply to get you negative 48 and add to get you 8. So again, multiply to get you the last and add to get you the middle. Here you should have gotten x plus 12 times x minus 4. They will add to get you that positive 8 and multiply to get you negative 48. But is this our final answer? No, because remember we're solving. This is equal to 0, so change the sign. So that's why here, guys, the answer was C. Question number 8. Notice how here, if you went and tried and solve this by factoring, there are no two factors that multiply to get you 12 and add to get you negative 6. So I'm going to go ahead and do quadratic formula. which is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So I'm going to first focus on the discriminant. I'm going to see if we need I in our answer. So I need a, b, and c here. So b squared, which is negative 6, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 12 here. Now I've got, you can put all that in the calculator. I'm getting those 36 minus 48, so you should have gotten a discriminant of negative 12. Notice how a discriminant that is negative means you had two imaginary solutions. So that means we need I in our answer. So I'm going to mark off B and A, and I'm already down to B or C. Now I'm going to continue. So x is equal to negative b, which again is negative 6, plus or minus the square root of negative 12, all over 2 times a, which here is 1. Notice how we do have two negatives making a positive. So that is now 6 plus or minus. Now see how we're taking the square root of a negative, so I know I need I. On the side here, make sure, let's simplify. Square root of 12, I can use 4 times 3 because the square root of 4 is 2. So this is 2 radical 3, but because of negative, 2i radical 3. All divided by 2 times 1 here, which is 2. Now divide. 6 divided by 2 is 3, plus or minus 2 divided by 2, which is 1 or 1i. Then notice how, remember, right, leave the radical alone, so radical 3. That's why here, guys, the answer was B. Question number 9, we are also solving for x. However, we're equal to 16x minus 3, and this has to equal 0. So with positive 16x, I need to move this over and subtract 16x. I'm going to line it up with my like terms. We also need to go ahead and add 3 to both sides. I'm going to line that up by my like terms. So now both terms here cancel and you're left with 0 here. I'm going to bring down now 2x squared. 3x minus 16x here is now negative 13x. And 15 plus 3 is now 18. Now we solve. But notice how a is 2 here. So I can't use the table and I cannot divide all three numbers by a common factor. So bottoms up. Multiply the first to the last. So here I've got x squared minus 13x, but now plus 36 is equal to 0. Now we can table it up, right? What numbers multiply to get us 36 and add to get you negative 13, negative 9, and negative 4. Because remember, right, when multiplying, two negatives make a positive, and if you put that in the calculator and add, you do get negative 13. Are we done? No, because whatever you multiply by with bottoms up, now make sure to divide. So here I've got 2x minus 9 is equal, oh, I'm sorry, not equal to, times x minus 2 is equal to 0. And again, here, because we have set equal to 0, I'm going to, here I've got x minus 2, so x is equal to positive 2, then also 2x minus 9. So 2x minus 9 is equal to 0. Add 9 to both sides. 2x is equal to 9, divide by 2. X is equal to 9 over 2. And also some of you have noticed the pattern that here is your fraction, just change the sign. So not negative 9 over 2, but now positive 9 over 2. So that's why here the answer was D. Question number 10. Notice this is another factoring, but special case. See how we have no x, we just have the two terms. But we are adding. So whenever we're adding and we have the sum of the two terms that we're factoring, no x term, we do need I in our factored form. So I'm going to mark off B, and that's the only one I can mark off because there is no I. I do notice though, and you even also using my answer choices as a guide, that I have a GCF of 2. So I'm going to first divide out my GCF of 2. So bring that down 2 times 16x squared plus 9. Then I'm going to go ahead and also mark off answer choice C, because notice how there is no 2 on the outside. We have our GCF, so we need that 2 on the outside. But remember here, we're not done. So remember, it's like a shortcut, right? Here, I'm going to take the square root. Square root of 16 is 4. So 4x plus the square root of 9, which is 3, but don't forget I, times 4x minus 3i. So that's why here the answer was A. Then the bonus question. You are given the perimeter of a rectangle. So the perimeter of the rectangle actually is this. So we have a rectangle where the length and width are the same. The perimeter, so all sides add up to be 6x squared plus 8x minus 10. You are given the width is 2x squared plus 1. So 2x squared plus 1. That means if the width here is 2x squared plus 1, then here the other side is also 2x squared plus 1. But you had to look for the expression that represents the length. So right now, between the width alone, I have 2x squared plus 1, but plus the other 2x squared plus 1. So just from the width, the two sides of the width, here we've got 4x squared plus 2 from combining my like terms. So now I need to figure out, what do these two sides here have to be? So one way of doing that is, well, I could subtract. I could subtract the perimeter, which is 6x squared plus 8x minus 10 minus that 4x squared plus 2. Now notice how we do need to distribute, right, that -1 here. So really we're combining 6x squared plus 8x minus 10, then minus 4x squared minus 2 from distributing the -1. Then combining like terms, I've got 6x squared minus 4x squared, which is 2x squared. Then there's no x term except for 8x, so I'm going to bring that down. Then here I've got -10 minus 2, -12. But that represents both of the lengths. Because remember, that is just one length and that's the other length. So that's both of them combined. So really, I need to half this. So I need half and half and half of that here. So really, the length is x squared plus 4x minus 6. That is the final answer. X squared plus 4x minus 6, meaning that this side here is also x squared plus 4x minus 6. Now, how can we go about checking our answer? Well, if you add up all 4 sides, you should get the perimeter of 6x squared plus 8x minus 10. So that's how here, guys, you could end up getting the length here and then checking your answer.